What's up guys, I'm Dean and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Guardians of the Galaxy 3 is out and I'm so excited to talk about it. The first Guardians of the Galaxy film is one of my favourite films ever, one of my favourite superhero films ever, and my favourite MCU film ever. I think it's an incredible film. I love James Gunn as a director, and I was really excited to see the finale of these characters, and I have a lot of thoughts. Like, last night I recorded an hour and a half long podcast about Guardians of the Galaxy 3, solely that, and if you want to listen to that, go check that out. But also I'm going to say most of the same things here, just in a shorter time frame. So how this is going to work, I'm going to give my overall thoughts on the film, and then I'm going to go character by character, and then I'll talk about the ending. Spoilers ahead, so if you haven't seen Guardians of the Galaxy 3 yet, what are you doing here? Just, bog off. Okay, so I really enjoyed this film. I don't think it's the best one of the trilogy. It might be the worst one, because I have a real soft spot for Guardians of the Galaxy 2. But at the moment, I think my ranking goes Volume 1, Volume 3, Volume 2. I think it's a really great finale for these characters. I think it's way more emotional than the others, and that's saying something, because I cry every time at Yondu's funeral in Guardians of the Galaxy 2. Then I think it's got some real great character moments, some phenomenal action, and some just real great depth to these characters that we've got to know over the course of the few years. I really enjoyed this film. Let's go character from like least relevant to most relevant, starting with Cosmo. Let's go Cosmo, because Cosmo's in this film, and Cosmo doesn't do a lot, but I think Cosmo is fun, and I like the silly joke about her being a bad dog, and I like the use of her powers, and I'm glad that she was used to the extent she is, and I'm interested to see this character in the future, but also I wouldn't care if we never see them again. Kraglin has always been an underrated character to me. I've always been a big fan of Kraglin. I think he's always been a bit underutilized, and he is a bit of a legend. Here, I think that he has his moment to shine, and I think that's really good. And he could have been in more of it, but I don't think the film is missing anything by giving him this limited part, and I think that's really solid. I think his arc with the arrow is really great, and seeing Yondu again at the ending was a great emotional beat as well. I think he's a great character. I think he's a fun character, and I just love Sean Gunn. The next character to talk about, let's go with the High Evolutionary as the villain. I can't remember his name. So whatever his name is, the same guy from Peacemaker, is a phenomenal actor. And here, I really love his performance. Is it Chukwudi Iwuji? Something like that. And he's really over the top here in a great way. Like, I think he goes to the absolute maximum of just of crazy mad scientist that he could reach without it becoming silly. Because he's threatening, and he's scary, and he's disgusting, and you get really annoyed with him, and I think it's great. And I think the reveal at the end that his face was clawed off by Rocket is a really intelligently done reveal, because it adds so much to the film about why he hates Rocket and he's hunting Rocket down so much, but it's not something you were questioning over the course of the film, and it's still a nice surprise. I think that's a great moment, and I think it was a phenomenal performance by him. So we've gone Cosmo, Kraglin, High Evolutionary. Let's go Adam Warlock next. Different to what I was expecting. Adam Warlock was very different to the character I was expecting to see in this film, but he's still a lot of fun, and I think he was still a really solid addition here. And I think Will Poulter did the comedy great, and he did the action great, and he's in really great shape. And I'm interested to see this character again. Out of all these characters in the film, Adam Warlock is the one I would like to see reappear the most. I think he's fun. Next up, let's go with Drax. Drax has always been my favourite Guardian, and I just think that's because he's very funny, and I have a soft spot for Dave Bautista, and I think there is unexpected depth to this character, and something that people have been complaining about a lot, especially because of the Avengers films, Infinity War and Endgame, that Drax has been reduced to just a joke, and he's missing a lot of that emotional depth he originally had. And I think this film addresses that. Like, it would be one thing to move past that and go back to giving this character depth, but the really interesting thing they do here is they kind of address the fact that he's become the butt of jokes and he's just a big dumb guy. And I really appreciated how they addressed that and how that worked within the film. I think that was a really solid choice. Speaking of solid choices, Gamora. I think a slight issue with Guardians of the Galaxy 3, like as a part of this trilogy, is there is such a disconnect between 1 and 2 and 3, because in the middle you have Infinity War, Endgame, and technically Love and Thunder. And I think that disconnect is an issue here, but the stuff with Gamora, they set up Gamora in an interesting place with her being a past version of herself. I think they explain that well, they move past it pretty well, and I really like that they didn't Loki this, because in the Loki TV show, the Loki in that is a previous version of Loki compared to the version of Loki that dies in Infinity War. And they just spend an episode of Loki just catching him up with all his character development. They speed run his character development, I think I said at the time. And it's fine, you know. Loki's a fine TV show, but here they take Gamora in a different direction, but it's still the same character. Like, you can sense it's the same character that we met in the original Guardians film, but they take that in a different direction, which I think is a really, really solid choice, and I think that really, really works. Next up, let's go Nebula, her sister. Karen Gillan, great. James Gunn's second favourite Guardian. Interestingly, this is the first film where Nebula is a part of the team. Like, that surprises me when I think about it, because she's not a part of the team in Guardians of the Galaxy 2, really. And she doesn't join the team until after Endgame. So good on her for that. The growth this character has is really great, and I think the emotional moments of her dancing at the end and leading nowhere at the end, and I think her moment when she finds out Rocket is still alive, I think there's a lot of understated, really solid moments for Nebula, and I really, really loved that. Yeah, I think that's all my Nebula thoughts. Next up, let's go with Mantis. I think Mantis is the MVP of this film. Genuinely, I was impressed and surprised by not how much Nebula is, not by the quantity of her, but also the quality. I think she had great emotional depth to her, and she really carried this team in ways I wasn't expecting. And I've never been a big fan of Mantis before, but I think she worked really, really well in this film. And I think she really added a fun dynamic to this film, and her action scenes were also really great, so I love that as well. Star-Lord was more of a main character than I was expecting, but I'm not complaining. I think this was just classic Star-Lord, a great continuation of his character. One complaint I could make is that I think his quasi-alcoholism at the start was never fully addressed throughout the film, and it was kind of left by the wayside, but I love the way they left this character, like I said. I think that's really interesting. But I love the way they left this character, like I said, I think that's really interesting. And there was a lot of good Star-Lord moments, and I enjoyed that. I realised I forgot to talk about Groot. I just want to address something, because I've seen people disagree on this. I'm pretty confident that the ending where you hear Groot goes, "I love you guys," sounding so Vin Diesel, is how everyone else hears Groot. We're hearing it like that, and he still was saying, "I am Groot," just we can understand the words, was my interpretation of that scene. And I know other people disagree with that, but I'm pretty sure that's what it is. I'm not editing that out because I was mid-sentence. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what it is. Yes, Groot. Okay, Rocket Raccoon. If we're talking purely frequency, this film has made me cry more times than any other film, because I think I cried 4 times. The amount of tears, this hasn't made me cry more than any film, but I think this has made me cry on more individual occasions than any film ever, because so much of the Rocket flashback was just heartbreaking, and it really fit the pacing of this film really, really well. The bit where he says hurts, and his first word is just hurts, just broke my heart, and that was so sad. And of course you get Lila dying, which was really sad, and just his ending was really great, that he's still got a family and he's still building up from that. I loved, and to be honest, I loved the ending of all these characters, which is what we're going to get into now. I'm conflicted because no one died, which I think is a surprise. And I think the only reason we were expecting people to die was because this was marketed as the huge finale, that we're never going to see these characters again. And if it wasn't marketed like that, I think I'd really love the ending to this film. I think it would have been a real great natural. But because I was expecting something different and I was expecting something more final, I'm a little bit disappointed. Because, for example, Drax's ending was great. I love that I think this is the best way to end his character, by stepping back into fatherhood, by the line where Nebula says, "You weren't meant to be a destroyer, you were meant to be a dad." I think that made me cry. I found that really, really sweet. So I think this is the best way to end his character. But I will be a little disappointed if we never see Drax again, because I don't think we will, because I think Dave Bautista is going to keep to his word that this is his last appearance, and I think that's a bit disappointing, that this is the last time we see this guy. But it was a really great ending for him, so yeah, I'm fine with it. I think Mantis going off on her own was a little bit out of nowhere, but it fit the character well. I think Gamora and the Ravagers is sweet, and that she's got a family there. I think that was really nice. It was a really great balance between that and Mantis like that, and the Guardians, and I think they left that on a really good note with Star-Lord and Gamora, sorry, because they could have put them back together, but they thought not to, and they didn't, which I think is the right decision to make. So good on them. And then you've got the new Guardians team of Adam, Phyla, Blurp, Groot, Rocket, and Kraglin. Great combination of characters. I'm not really interested in seeing that as a team. Like, nothing about that super interests me. I'd rather see an Adam Warlock solo film. I'd rather see a Rocket and Groot solo film. Like, I'd rather see them do their own solo things if we were to see them again. Star-Lord back on Earth, really interesting. That we're going to see Star-Lord again, definitely. That's the one that was confirmed. Is interesting. I hope it's a variant. I hope it's some multiverse shenanigans and not that Star-Lord. Because the ending for this Star-Lord was so perfect and so sweet. Is there anyone else to talk about? No. Music, great as always. I don't think the soundtrack was as strong as Guardians of the Galaxy 2. I think that's the one with the best soundtrack, but I think it might be better than Guardians of the Galaxy 1. The opening was Creep. With Creep was really, really great, and I predicted that was going to happen, so well done me. Pat on the back. I think that the action was really solid, and like the Nebula breaking limbs, Groot doing really inventive stuff with his things. I think Nebula's arm was great, and I think that corridor fight was one of the best action scenes, I should say, in the MCU. I think the action really stepped up a notch here, and they did really inventive things with each of the characters' powers. Like, they did interesting stuff with Mantis's power, they did interesting stuff with Nebula's, interesting stuff with Groot, and I think there was some great Rocket moments as well. Of course, I think that one was really great in that corridor. Where to see these characters again, I don't know. I'd be happy to see Rocket and Groot again. I'd be happy to see Adam Warlock again. I'd happy to see Mantis again. But Nebula, Drax, Gamora, and Star-Lord, I'd be very happily never see those characters again. And I know I just said it's a bit of an unsatisfying ending with Nebula and Drax leading nowhere. Like, I would want to see that again. But I'd be fine if we never saw those characters again. But Rocket and Groot and Adam Warlock, I think, would be satisfying to see again. And I gave this film 4.5 stars, and I really enjoyed it. And I think that's all my thoughts. Thank you for watching. Please like this video, please subscribe, and please comment down below your thoughts on Guardians of the Galaxy, and I will see you next time. Bye.